Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Indie Reads Aloud. Today, Auntie Kit is coming back, and she's going to read again for us, and this time, a really special, lovely middle grade book. I just adore this book. It's called The Healing Star. This is such a sweet, lovely, amazing book. I'm so glad you wrote this book. It really, really touched me, and it just brought back a host of lovely memories from my childhood, so thank you, and thanks again for coming back.
Happy to be here.
For those of you who have not met Angie in our last episode, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is the middle child of a family of 3 girls. She started making up her own stories at age 4. Because she couldn't yet write, her mom wrote the stories down for her while she painted the pictures. Her first story was called Wagland and featured an island community with sea creatures that ate tuna fish sandwiches. I really hope one day you're going to publish that book, Angie.
I write well, and I think it's because I ate tuna fish sandwiches. That's why did that.
I absolutely think you should republish that book. Make it a thing.
Oh, right. I will.
Okay. Angie has a BS in written communication with a minor in language, literature, and writing from Eastern Michigan University and an MLIS with a specialization in children's librarianship. I get it right that time. From Wayne State University. Her poetry has been published in literary magazines. She is also an artist and performance poet. In her free time, she enjoys finding and hiding painted rocks in her neighborhood and going on adventures with her family and friends. Angie lives with her husband and daughter in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. The Healing Star was her debut novel. She often wishes on stars, but hasn't caught one just yet. And if you haven't discovered it yet, you have to check out her latest children's book. We have another episode with her reading from it, and seriously, guys, go back, listen. It's super, super fun. Yasuko and the Dream Eater. Go check that one out. So, Angie, tell me a little bit about where you got the idea for the Healing Star.
Yes. So I always liked looking up at the night sky. And I've probably told you about this before, but I originally wanted to be an astronaut. And then I realized everything that they have to go through and a lot of spinning.
Math, so much math.
Math. I have vertigo, so it's just like, there's no way I'm going to be able to go up in space. I can barely go on the merry-go-round. So, but, I decided, well, if I can't go up to the stars, I'm going to write a story about the stars. And I just started thinking about, what if we could go up to the stars? What if we could catch one? What if we could bring it home with us? What would that be like? And the story just started from there.
That's spectacular. I love the main character in this story, Julia, because she reminds me a little bit of Judy Blume's Fudge from Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing.
Yeah.
There's a connection to that I definitely hear your literary influence, because I just loved how much fun she was. She was always coming up with some great ideas.
Yes.
And her imagination is just so tremendously vivid.
Yes. And she's mischievous. I think kids like a mischievous character, right? Because kids are mischievous. So, and she's strong. I needed her to be I was a strong girl. And so she's a strong girl, she fights the bullies. She has the farting dog, Petey. And
I love Petey. Petey's great.
Write a story just about Petey. So keep your eye out. Eventually there might be a follow-up.
Awesome. Okay, that's very fun. I'm going to be looking for that one. I am really excited for you to share this book with everybody. Can you give us a little bit of the setup of what you're going to read? And then when you're ready, please take the microphone and read aloud.
I have a little star with me for support. The story is a light fantasy for grades 3 to 6. Stars with healing powers are falling from the sky, and 4th grader Julia is trying to catch one to save her grandmother's life. She's sick with an invisibility illness and will eventually completely disappear, but if Julia can catch the star, her wish will be granted and her grandmother will become well again. Now, I'm not going to start from the beginning. I like to choose a few chapters in, an exciting part, and then I'm going to leave it on a cliffhanger. So hopefully you guys will be wondering what happens next. So this part in the story, Julia is on Blackberry Hill. It's star catching night, and she's waiting with her dog Petey for a star to fall so she can try to catch it.
I love this part of the book. I'm so glad you're reading this. When you're ready, please begin.
With nothing to do but wait, her heart continued to flutter in her chest. She didn't want to take her eyes off the sky, but she needed to do something to keep herself calm, so she began her stargazing ritual. First, she located the North Star, said to guide sailors, weary travelers, and from time to time, even wandering beagles. Then she found her favorite constellation, the Hunter, made up of some of the brightest stars in the night sky. He was always battling the bull, but had a magic belt to protect him. She had the feeling he might actually get the better of it on a night like tonight, a star-catching night. Although some might say it wasn't a fair fight now that the bull was blind. Julia knew this loss only made the bull fight twice as hard. But the bull wasn't the hunter's true enemy. That coveted position was held by the scorpion. Julia pulled her red sweater around her more tightly. The scorpion was said to have been the one to kill the hunter with one mighty sting. Julia hated to think of the finality of it. She was glad she couldn't see the scorpion tonight. Some said the two constellations were purposely positioned on opposite sides of the sky so as never to meet. Julia continued her gazing by locating Canis Major and Canis Minor, known to be the hunter's faithful canine companions during a hunt. Julia looked over at Pete, snoring loudly. One was more than enough for her. A strange popping sound startled Pete from his dream. He whimpered, but then went back to sleep. Julia looked towards the sky. Something flickered. It could be an aircraft or maybe a UFO. She smiled as she thought of Gigi's mother and her wild theories about aliens. Another flicker, like a tiny light bulb flashing on a Christmas tree. She wanted to reach out and grab it, but she knew that's not how it worked. Was this the star she'd been waiting for? The star that would make Grandma well? She said a silent prayer to Asteria, goddess of falling stars, and then continued to watch and wait. Watch and wait. Watch and bam! The noise was loud like a firecracker or a gun. Julia peered into the bushes looking for signs of the catchers, but no one was there. It could have been the starting signal, but that would mean a falling star had already been sighted. Julia's heart hammered in her chest. She stared back at the star as a spark of light streaked across the sky like a lit match. She grabbed her gear and started running. Come on, Pete, Julia called as she flew down the hillside, the net waving behind her like a flag. She never took her eyes off the star. As she headed towards the field, a scattering of colored dots moved below, the catchers. She had to get there first. With maximum momentum on her side, she reached the bottom fast and nearly tumbled into the grass. But she flung her arms out like an airplane to keep her balance. Go, go, go! Whoops and hollers of excitement howled all around her. One boy and girl collided a few feet in front of her and then fell to the ground. To avoid the chaos and confusion, Julia veered right, still following the trail of smoke in the sky. This star was a whopper. She could tell by how fast it fell. The trail of smoke and dust particles fanned out behind it like the tail of a dragon, a real fireball. Julia's palms began to sweat. She still hadn't decided whether to use the gloves or the net. Where was Pete? She didn't have time to look. A lot of the catchers headed west as if anticipating that this firecracker of a star would launch itself all the way to the edge of the field. But Julia had a hunch. Something her grandmother used to tell her. She headed north, sprinting as fast as she could. The chilly air tickled Julia's nose, but the heat of her excitement warmed her. Her muscles ached as she forced them to work at a superhuman pace. She wanted to stop, but she knew she couldn't. An image of Grandma lying sick in bed popped in her head, propelling her forward. Come on, Star. Drop, drop. Finally, the star eased up. It was losing momentum now, dropping down like an elevator in a skyscraper. How many floors up was it? Julia guessed 50? She had just enough time to get under it. Luckily, no one was in her way. Shouts rang out in the distance. The catchers sensed their mistake. They were turning around. Somewhere a dog barked. Was that Pete? If the catchers caught up to him, they might kick him for sport, especially if he got in their way. She hoped the memory of his sharp teeth would keep them running while she continued to focus on the star. Just like catching a pop fly, she tried to convince herself. Her hands shook. She licked her upper lip. Was this what victory tasted like? Salty? She rubbed her hands together with excitement. This is for Gramu. Julia tried to ignore the shouts of other catchers heading in her direction. She checked the status of the star. Maybe 25 stories left. Time to prepare. She put on the gardening gloves, planning to catch it in her hands like Jacoby had done. Her hands shook. She looked right at the star, searching for answers. It hurled towards her in a blaze of light and dust, temporarily blinding her. For a moment, she looked away, spots continuing to dance in front of her eyes. Her courage began to burn out. What would Gramu do? Her grandmother had always told her that stars cooled and hardened upon contact. The gardening gloves were made of nylon, which might melt given the strength of this star. What was the net made of? Think, Julia, think. Was it wool? Yes, sheared from Grandpa's very own sheep, and wool burned more slowly than nylon. Julia picked up the net and clutched it firmly, staring down the star. 10 stories left. Her eyes burned so much that she almost needed sunglasses. The star was too bright. With only 5 stories left, she had to shut her eyes, but she quickly forced herself to squint. Squeezing the handle of the net, she wished harder than she'd ever wished before. Please let me catch this star. Please let me save Gramu. Wham! And that's where I'm gonna leave it.
That's you can't just leave it there. Oh my gosh.
Read the story to find out what happens.
That's right. That's kind of why we do this. Tell me, where did you get the idea for Pete? He's such a comical little creature. He's more than just your average dog. I mean,
yes.
he's got some features about him that are pretty unique. Where did you come up with these ideas for him?
Well, I did have a dog. His name was Blazer, and he was also a mixed dog. He was part poodle, and we're not exactly sure the other part.
Okay.
So that's why I thought it was kind of funny to have, Pete has the extra long ears, even though he's a beagle, and he gets kind of teased about that. And so I don't know actually why I decided she'd have a dog. I mean, sometimes certain things just fit. I think I just felt like she needed a companion, and I knew she would be a dog lover. And so it just kind of unfolded naturally. But I'll tell you, since it's been a while since I had a dog, I was, there were some things I had to kind of think from memory, and that was the part I was worried about, was that it wouldn't seem authentic, and so that it's extra funny that the kids thought that was their favorite character,
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that was the one you were most concerned about, and it turns out you didn't have to worry about him at all.
Yeah, they just so that's why I'd like to feature him again, because pets, it's a character of its own, right?
Sure. Absolutely. And most of us have pets growing up, whether it's a goldfish or a dog or a horse. I mean, we all come in contact with them, and they really are a large part of our lives. So yeah, I love it when authors introduce animals into their stories.
Right.
He's just so comically wonderful. I adore him. So thank you so much for reading your story for us today. I really enjoyed it. And like I say, this is one of my favorite books. And I give it as gifts to many of my friends, even my adult friends, just because it's that good a story. I think everybody should read it.
Yeah, some adults have said they've enjoyed it, so that's great. I feel like you can always read kids' books. You're never too old for fantasy. So yes.
I agree, 100%. I'm so glad you came back on the program. And when you write your next book, will you come back and share it with us?
Absolutely. Can't wait.
Fantastic. Thank you, Angie.
Bye.